All right, guys, ladies and gentlemen, episode number 2, Ruthless Politics with Kid Chronic and Treez.
Hello, everyone. How are we?
How are we? A lot of news, a lot of current events. This is a nonstop thing. That's why we have this podcast. We'll be able to talk all the time.
We live in a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week news cycle.
It is overload.
I actually hate it when the news isn't really on Saturday and they put the half-ass news on because I'm such a news junkie. I'm like, come on, Anthony Bourdain. I want to see some real news here.
It's kind of funny how news on the weekend is completely different than on weekdays, breaking things or how things. It's really strange how everything seems to occur in the 5-day week.
That's a really interesting topic because now that I think about it for the first time, it must be based on the news celebrities, right? Anderson Cooper or like Sean Hannity, he doesn't want to work on the weekend, so he has it off. But it's odd because the news consumer's like, okay, I'm home on the weekend. I'm here. I can learn some information. Oh, nope, news isn't on. Yeah. It's only on while you're working.
Yeah, it's a strange thing, and how they'll move things so that people aren't paying attention to them. A lot of times over the weekend, it's kind of strange how that works.
Oh, there's a whole art to releasing news. You know, like if you notice, a lot of times bad news comes out on a Friday because, you know, it's going to be lost by the time Monday rolls around. So the art of the news release is a whole thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a planned thing. We are at the Space Coast Podcast Studios in sunny Florida. And again, you're listening to Ruthless Politics. Let's jump in. We appreciate everybody listening, by the way. And we're going to hit some more topics than we did in the introductory episode because we spent so much time on the 2020 candidates, and that was so deep with how many there were. So let's start with something a little light. Your boy Pete Buttigieg. Buttigieg, right?
Buttigieg. That's the chief.
Buttigieg. He's catching a lot of shit for his handling of a shooting in South Bend. And it's got a racial element to it. It's, I believe, a white officer and shooting a young black man. What's your opinion on, first of all, should he be catching shit? What is he really supposed to do here? And how's this, in your opinion, how do you think this is going to affect his campaigning? This is right before the debates.
It's I would have to say it's really fascinating because it is, for Pete Buttigieg, I guess, like his first big challenge, if you will, or a lot of people will say that. But like you also mentioned, what is he supposed to do in this scenario? So is Pete Buttigieg, which is, he's the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, folks, and this is where this shooting took place, is he supposed to step in and heal the racial injustice of Indiana in, 15-minute speech or something? What is he supposed to do to alleviate all this? There's really not much he can do except step in there and be the lightning rod for these people's anger and frustration. And so that's what he's done. But inversely, that really hurts him politically because it creates these kind of made-for-TV moments where, minorities are yelling at him like, hey, what are you doing for me? People are dying here. You're our mayor. And it's just, it's awful for his political campaign, I think.
If this guy's going to make it through, he obviously needs the black vote. So having any sort of racial tension is not going to help that. Let me just read to you really quickly. So it says, a white police officer, Ryan O'Neill, shot and killed a black man, Eric Logan, in South Bend, where Buttigieg is the mayor. And it says there's long simmering tensions between the residents and the police force. Apparently, the officer who fired the shot has been accused of racist remarks before. So partially what Buttigieg is catching his crap for is that he let this fester, that apparently, and this was, I guess, no surprise to anybody, but that there's kind of a racial problem in South Bend that is now being highlighted by this, and he's got to answer for it, I guess, and it's interesting how he's going to navigate his way through this one.
I don't know how he's going to navigate his way through it other than just sit there, take it, and then move forward. But the reality is this. The problem with police shootings and just with the police's interactions with the community in general, it really boils down to police training. We have a friend of ours, Big Al, who is a bail bondsman, and he's been an advertiser of ours for years. And Big Al is one of the people, he runs a business called Shooting R Us that trains police. And he talks about how they train them to shoot to kill, how they're often trained to shoot an animal before it bites them. And there's a lot of things that are set into police training where it's kind of built up now, where it's military training in a way. And they're trained that they're not supposed to be touched. They're not supposed to have really anything happen to them at all. So the police are really they're kind of put themselves in a position now where it's going to be hard for them to change. You know what I mean? You're going to have to go all the way down to the core of how we train these police officers. And then you have the issue of all the police officers are already trained. They just did a study where they went through and they checked out all the police officers' Facebooks across the country, tons of different police officers. And what they found was appalling. They were a racist. They were encouraging people to be beat up. They were everything you don't want your police officer to be. So when you have a systemic culture and a training system that's national, how are you going to change that around? And so sometimes what I hate what happens is a politician, something bad happens under his watch. He's willing to go down and try to deal with it, which is all he can really do. And now he's blamed for the systemic problem that's been building for, 50 years? It's not really fair, you know?
No, and to touch on some of the police things that you were just talking about, and going off a little tangent with that, I've had this conversation many times. It's like mechanics. It's like cooks. It's like servers. It's like anything. There's good and bad. So you can't assume that all police are good or all police are bad. You have, it's a mixed bag. There are people that get into this because they're on a power kick. There are people that are going to get into this knowing that they're going to have access to things and be able to do dirt. A lot of gangbangers, I don't know if you know this, L.A., this was a common thing with the Rodney King going way back when, but a lot of gangbangers, when they grow up, become cops in a lot of these bigger cities. L.A., a prime example. Miami, another one. You'll see these guys who, when they were 22, they were gangbanging, but now they're 34 and more responsible. But I still feel like you don't take that out of them. You know what I mean? So
it's a very low entry to get into, that kind of job, right? And I think there's also a push to get minorities into these types of positions where they can get city jobs and things like that. So it does happen that you can get in there and kind of be undertrained or not be the best person suited for that position. That's definite. And there's something to be said for that. Should police officers be carrying around weapons and have all of this power when they don't even really understand the laws that they enforce? You know what I mean? They don't even have a basic community college, legal background. And they certainly don't have enough training when it comes to diffusing situations, to being comfortable being touched. Like if you're a police officer, people are going to touch you. You're going to get bumped around a little bit in that job, I would imagine. And you can't just go shooting people every time you're scared.
Yeah, well, like you said, the itchy trigger finger, and I believe that the training is poor and it's not universal. The training that an officer gets in Phoenix is not the same training I fully believe that one might get in Miami or
a rural area.
Yeah, I think it's different. And yes, there's itchy trigger fingers, and then I think that there's people that get hardened by this. So a Chicago police officer who's been doing that for 20 years or whatever is certainly more going on in his head than somebody that worked Beverly Hills for 2 years.
I have a novel idea for you guys. How about this one? How about lawyers become cops? There's way too many lawyers right now. Law school's pumping out lawyers everywhere. Lawyers have no employment. Right. Their criminal justice system is shrinking. We're going through criminal justice reform. So lawyers should be the cops and maybe pay them a little bit more money.
They would love that. Matter of fact, you're going to see RoboCop. That's a real thing. So
terrifying.
You're going to see AI and all that's also going into the police thing too. So, the police, they're always going to be under fire, no matter what side you're on. It's a very hard job. It's a thankless job. And
very hard job. Very hard job. You have to give them credit. It's a hard job.
Yeah, you can be killed.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah. So to wrap up, Buttigieg, hey, man, good luck. I think the best thing that happened is this happened early. You deal with it, go to the debate. And, yeah, like you said, he's got to move on. There's nothing he can do.
It's politics. He needs to find a way to spin these lemons into lemonade. And it's not going to be on the ground in South Bend, Indiana. And I hate to say this, but from a political standpoint, him going on the ground and being face-to-face with people that are angry or just any person that's in the general public is foolish. It's a foolish media move. He should have made a broad speech about this subject, and it might not have helped the people on the street, and it might not have made him feel better, but it would have been better overall. Him going down there and taking that abuse from, general people who are going to be upset with anybody that shows up at that point was a real campaign mistake, and his campaign manager should get a real kick in the ass for that one.
Yeah, they fed him to the lions.
Exactly.
All right, so that's hey, good luck, Pete. You're gonna need it.
Here, speaking of interesting segue,
yeah.
Pete obviously might need a better press secretary, and so does Donald Trump, your buddy.
Yeah.
So here is
fielding offers.
Here is the people so far that have been talked about that could be the new press secretary. Let me know what you think about any of these people. Okay, Heather Nauert, did I pronounce that right? The recently departed Treasury spokesman Tony Sayegh. Former Fox News host Eric Bolling.
I saw that.
This is a funny one. CNN contributor and potential first Hispanic press secretary Steve Cortez.
These are not familiar names.
State Department spokeswoman Morgan Ortegas. I don't know barely any of these people.
Yeah.
White House Director of Strategic Communications Mercedes Schlapp. What is she, like a stripper that works next to Mar-a-Lago? Where did Trump find that one?
Mercedes will slap you for saying that, by the way.
And then Stephanie Grisham. This is a number one choice. The only one that really matters. So probably get it. Stephanie Grisham. She's 42 years old. She's the spokeswoman for the First Lady Melania Trump.
Yeah, she has the edge, doesn't she?
That's what they say, but what is the press secretary's job anyway? I mean, I have to be honest with you. They haven't had a press conference in, 100 days or something? It's the anti-press secretary position.
Yeah, this is, under the Trump administration, the press secretary, this is a hard job. I mean, this is, by the way, this is a shitty job.
Is it, though? Is it really that hard? You go on Fox, you say what Trump wants. You go on CNN, you say what Trump wants. It's hard on your credibility.
Yeah, well.
But I don't know if it's actually hard to do.
I think it's, I'm speaking not even just for Trump, but that job in general, you kind of get up there and lie or sugarcoat or it's kind of their job to tailor a narrative, really, to be honest, of what the president that they're doing that for wanted. If you remember, Spicer was doing it before.
Sean Spicer and the SNL version of Sean Spicer is what made press secretaries famous. I think people didn't really put too much interest into what a press secretary was up to. He's just somebody that was a mouthpiece for the administration.
Right.
But now, since Sean Spicer and the SNL, like, there's a lot of attention on press secretaries.
He's what is it? Kate, what's her name that does it? It's Kate, the blonde-haired lady, right? She does him on Saturday Night Live. Kate, what
McKinnon?
Yeah.
Kate doesn't do him. No, it was another girl they brought in. I forget. She was she's an SNL regular, but they brought her in to do it.
I don't really know who has the edge here. These are not big names. I didn't know that there was a Sarah Sanders Huckabee before she had that job, to be honest. I knew Mike Huckabee, but
she wants to be a governor now, so she's leaving, and she's going to try to take a crack at being a governor, which I think feels like a real long shot for her.
Well, she has a base of Republicans that like her, and in that state, that's possible. Yeah, she's going to parlay or whatever. Did anybody really hear why she was stepping down? I don't really remember a reason for this.
I think it's pretty common. When people get those kind of cushy jobs in the White House and also stressful jobs, sometimes they do a year or two and then they take off and they get some high-paying, high-powered job. Press secretary is a real stepping stone job. You don't really see a press secretary sit around for 4 years. It's not that common.
Yeah. Well, another thing people got to understand, and the Trump, obviously, his cabinet looks terrible in the turnover, but I believe in Barack Obama's cabinet as well. When it was all said and done, he only had one original member that was still a part of his cabinet after his 8 years. Granted, 8 years. So it seems to be a very common thing that people come and go in this. I think it's a used kind of scenario. Like you said, they jump from...
It's a big resume builder, you know. You
totally
get that .gov on the resume, and, you write your own ticket from there. I think that's what's funny about the Trump cabinet is the fact that Trump probably never wanted a cabinet. He just wanted to do it with his family, and now that's what he's doing.
Well, that's the only people he
If
trusts.
he could kick out the rest of the cabinet, he would in a heartbeat. He doesn't even support Pence.
No.
He doesn't even trust Pence. He would push Pence off a balcony if no one was looking.
I don't believe that they're that friendly at all, actually. And a lot of people...
Do you think they ever have dinner? What's that look like? Mike Pence and his wife show up with the rosary and their pet rabbit.
Right.
And Melania's looking at her nude portfolio, and Trump's watching the big screen yelling at CNN.
Well, first of all, the Pences are, they're very classy, as you see. They're very, they're religious or whatever. So I think that, no, I don't think these two hang out at all. I don't think they go to dinner. I don't see that Mike Pence is a fun guy.
He was being run out of Indiana before Trump picked him up. I mean, he was like on the way out of politics.
He was an interesting candidate because Mike Pence, when you take over, it was classic Trump. When you get Biden was there to help Obama, and he did. But Mike Pence offered no help to Trump. There was not one voter that was like, oh, you got Pence on the ticket. Well, now it's serious. You know what I mean? He's a nobody politically, like you said, really. And it was a strange pick. And I think it was because Trump was like, no one's going to overshadow me. I'm going to take a guy that you hardly even know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that might have been part of it, and I think there was some calculation to do. Trump has a large base that is, Christian and super conservative, and he is super conservative, and so it might have been a way to just shore them up. And I do think that you're right that Trump likes an empty shirt. Pence is basically Like, you could put a cardboard cutout there. It doesn't matter. I mean, the guy is just, he barely exists.
Yeah, he's an interesting...
And he's not there to rock the boat. He's just sitting around like, man, I hope they impeach this guy or he drops dead so I can be president.
Yeah, that's why I don't think Mike Pence has any shot of winning for the Republicans.
I bet you secretly, like, in his office, he has, like, all this, like, Mike Pence presidential propaganda that he, like, looks at when nobody's around. Like, remember, like, Spaceballs with his dolls?
Yeah, right.
That's Mike Pence. He has a little Mike Pence president thing standing in front of the podium, and he just plays with him at his desk all day.
Well, that would be actually funny to watch because he seems so serious and stuffy. I would love to see Mike Pence play with a slinky. You know what I mean? That'd be funny.
Million hits on YouTube.
Yeah. Let's go into Bernie Sanders. He's making a very bold... So a lot of these Democrats are pandering to any group that they can that is disenfranchised, obviously. This is a big thing. So you're getting into reparations talk, by the way, and I'm going to bring something up in a second after that. So... everybody's got an angle for who they want to help. And Bernie is the one that seems to have now unveiled a true, and I believe Elizabeth Warren is big on this as well. They're battling this. But he's unveiling a bailout for a student debt bailout, total elimination of student debt. Can this be done?
There's so much to talk about on this subject. And as a person that has student debt, I love that Bernie and Elizabeth Warren are arguing over who wants to pay my debt for me. Thank you.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. People, we're all adults here. And these people, Bernie and Elizabeth Warren, are supposed to be the smartest people in politics. They should be adults too. And I don't like the idea of trying to find the largest group of people you can give something to buy votes. That's what's happening here. Everyone has a student loan they want to get rid of. And all the people that have a student loan they want to get rid of are people like me. They might vote, you know, people with a college education, probably a middle-class person, you know. So it's buying the whole middle class to vote for you, right? So on that aspect, I think it's kind of ridiculous. But let's fast forward here and think about it. We are the richest country in the world, right? We spend trillions and trillions of dollars. And what is our government going to spend the money on? What are they going to do? They're going to go kill brown people again? Okay, well, then maybe pay off my student loan. That sounds pretty good compared to how the government usually spends my money.
Well, so let's take the kill the brown people part. We kill all sorts of people, so that's not fair. But look, you could first of all, you have to figure out, is this fiscally conservative? I mean, is this even possible? It's on paper, it's a great idea. I think that people are saddled with debt. I think that college, we are now learning, is a scam for many. You go in, you have no money, you take out loans that are the only way you're attending. The loans are even more expensive if you want to go to a better school for whatever reason that you think that's going to achieve anything for you. And people are coming out and owing all this money. And I mean, you don't have to share how much you owe, but people owe $100,000.
I don't mind. So on my student loans, I think that my total of the loans by the time I was done with college, and I spent the better part of a decade in college, I think that I had about $59,000.
Okay.
And the interest rate was not good. That's the illusion, is that you have a good interest rate.
Right.
You don't. You really don't. You don't have a good interest rate, and you can consolidate, and you can play some games, and the government is very lenient. If you don't want to pay, like when I was starting my company, there would be months on a rip where I'd be like, I'm not paying the student loan this month. And they'll give you, as long as you stay in contact with them, you call, hey, I need a forbearance, I need a little time because of this or that. They will work with you. So that is what's nice about a student loan. But the bad part about it is there's no getting out of it. If you go bankrupt, there's no way to get away from this loan.
No.
And so I see both sides. My payment, I think, is about $600 a month. It's a lot of money. I could buy a really nice car for that or something, you know? So it is something you feel. But I think that going to college made me smarter. And I really enjoyed it more than anything. I had a lot of fun in college.
Right.
So I think that, I think it was kind of worth it for me. But I'm in a very unique position. I started a tech company. So I have the money to pay my student loan. How does a regular person with a normal job making 50, 60 grand a year make a $600 payment? I have no fucking idea. So I think that the student loan is never going to get paid back. And that's the way that Bernie should approach it. He should be like, listen, guys, this is a looming bubble. This is like a .com bubble in the other direction. This is like a housing crisis. That's what he should compare it to. This is like a housing crisis. These people are going to die without paying this debt. So we need to do something about that. And that would be the way to go about it, I think.
Well, first of all, one thing you do is maybe cut it all in half. I mean, zeroing it out is
just to be clarified, in Bernie's plan, people like me actually wouldn't get the benefit. If you make over $100,000 a year, you get no benefit.
So how about that? So you have to be middle class or lower middle class to have this. And then look, there's a lot of people that went to college, struggled, and paid it. And I think there's going to be a whole group of folks that are going to watch a whole nother group of folks get this wiped away, and then they're going to look at like, well, wait a minute.
That's the whole argument. If you chose to not go to college and start your career and work hard, or if you worked hard all the way through college so you wouldn't have a student loan, why should your tax dollars go to pay somebody like me who took out tons of loans and spent them on beer and pot and chasing women and everything else you do at Florida State University?
This is an ultimate pandering move. It's something that, by the way, Obama floated this. This is not a new idea.
They would have crucified Obama if he did.
Well, he talked about it, but I think they saw that fiscally this might be problematic. And you're right. This is a bubble. This is a crisis. Something's got to get done because it's affecting too many good Americans that are saddled with this.
Here's another portion that I think is interesting about it. Here's another part of it that I think is interesting. It's where the money's going to come from. So Bernie, he wants to tax basically every stock and bond trade. He wants to tax the whole stock market, right?
Right.
So anything you do in the stock market is going to get taxed, and that's going to go to pay for this. And in theory, that sounds great because who doesn't hate the stock market? It's like this kind of like this dark force, right? It's not like a real thing.
Right.
But the problem is, do you know what kind of instant recession I think that would cause? It would be great for the crypto economy, which we could talk about. But
Right.
I think if you just jam a tax right in the middle of all of our high finance, they kind of just recovered too. I don't think that would be really smart politics. And I don't think it would be good for the economy. The place where that money is in the military budget. And they're all too bitch-ass pussies to talk about it. The military budget is too big. Politicians always go up, hey, we need to make it bigger. We need to make it stronger. No. We have a military 10 times bigger than every other military in the world.
Right.
We need to take some of that money, give ourselves health care and college. That's where the money's at, in the military budget.
Well, yeah. I mean, if anybody looks, I think it's 60% on record. Some people think it's 70%.
What does that say about our country, that we spend 70, 60% of our nation's income on war?
Well, I've kicked this around, and this is unfortunate, and that is that we are the biggest, baddest motherfucker on the planet. And here's the problem. If you allow somebody else to even sniff that opportunity, they're going to take it, and they're going to run with it. And so if you like your America, how you've been around the world, basically not having any problems for the most part, being the bully, you have to spend a shitload on all of this in a way to reinforce that you're that guy that will never lose. The other countries are gunning. They all want to be number one. Everybody wants to be number one.
But the military budgets aren't even close. I think China has
not.
one aircraft carrier or a couple, and Russia has one that leaks and doesn't even move. We
have dramatically spent more percentage of our money on military than those countries. It's not necessarily efficient. And by the way,
and we have bases all over the world that we're paying for. I mean, this is a huge undertaking.
The military spending is the ultimate in crony capitalism in the United States, because these companies, they run shit, man. This is like you said, this is where the most money is being allocated, and people.
And it creates an interesting loop because they get government money, and then they can use that money to lobby to get more government money.
Well,
so
yeah.
It's a fascinating cycle.
Well, what's even crazier is if you get let's say they get $700 billion in government funding, you better spend all that because you're asking for 9 the next time. That's how this all works, too. And it's really crazy. By the way, this is how all things go that are funded, but this one being, again, the largest amount. Hey, man, it would be great if they took a little piece of that and put it toward other things that we could use. But I think there's enough money. It's just misappropriated, in my opinion, in all of this. There's enough money being brought in that covers everything.
But the military needs to be addressed in other ways, too, because we're preparing for a war that we're not even going to fight. We have either lost or are losing the information war right now, and we're not prepared for that at all. The rest of the world is. So in the future, these wars are going to be fought over the internet. I think the days of dropping bombs and things like that are probably coming to an end in the next 100 years or so, and we're not even really gearing up for that. So there's money to be saved on modernizing the military for the wars that we're actually fighting. More drones, more video, more of things that actually, are modern and don't require a manned operation. You know what I'm saying? We could modernize the military, save money, and get some of these things done.
Well, sounds like that is going to happen actually soon enough. Why don't we go to a break? We can stop right here. We got more topics. We're going to talk about Iran and Trump's reaction to what happened with the drone strike. We got the Hawley bill. Internet may change as you know it, folks. The big tech companies. Silicon Valley, they're not happy. They are not happy.
listening to Space Coast Podcast, home of the greatest podcasts on the Space Coast. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or having your own show, email us at spacecoastpodcast@hotmail.com. Space Coast Podcast. Talk hard!
Hey, I'm Vinny with the all-new Vinny Marino Podcast. I want you to join me every other Monday as we tackle all the craziest headlines from around Florida and truly explore and uncover what's missing. Also, we will invite the exciting guests from our community who have seen it all and aren't afraid to spill the beans about it. And finally, we can't forget about Vinny's top 3 rants and raves about traffic, restaurants, and events. Join us on Facebook as we go live and bring you behind the scenes of each show and let you be a part of it. The Vinny Marino Podcast, all Space Coast, super raw and unedited, straight to your dome all the time, live from the Space Coast Podcast Studios. Listen everywhere you find podcasts.
Hey there, this is Jesse Hall, and I want to remind you to tune into Business Elite Brevard Edition. And what we do on Business Elite Brevard Edition is bring to you some of the biggest movers and shakers on the Space Coast. These could be industry leaders, tech innovators, and social influencers. And what we do is kind of bring them on, ask them some of the most relevant questions that you may not know about. And these are people who may not be in the news, but they are making moves behind the scenes. Again, tune in. Business Elite Brevard Edition.
All right, we're back. Treez, Kid Chronic,
Hello, everyone.
Ruthless Politics, episode number 2. We are sponsored by the good folks at cbdapedia.com.
The CBD and hemp oil superstore.
Yeah, folks, if you don't know about CBD or you don't trust in it, you go to this website. Tons of information, tons of products, and
they offer a BOGO every single day. Buy one, get one free.
yeah, so you're saving money, but it's a life-changing situation here. And so look into CBD. We're at the Space Coast Podcast Studios in sunny Florida. And again, this is Ruthless Politics. Let's talk about war. Let's talk about...
In America, war? No way.
Well, you know, this I find this very fascinating. This is the media. I mean, when you really hate Trump, boy, you hate even when he doesn't fuck with another country. So Iran, we know this has been bubbling up. We talked a little, I think we may have mentioned it in the last episode, maybe not. But so there was a stand down. In my opinion, Trump is a foolish man in that he would always talk about how Obama always telegraphed what he was going to do, and he let them know and this and that. Trump does the same things. He does it on Twitter. It's very odd, but he does it. So he read him the Riot Act, this and that, and then he pulls back. And as you know, folks, that Tucker Carlson, this is strange. Now, this is where the media really comes into play here and how Trump is a media junkie. So Tucker Carlson basically did an opinion piece at the beginning of one of his shows, and he just was completely against the Iran attack, and he's a pacifist, basically. You know, we're in a different time now where there was a time Republicans were hawks and this and that. And so we're going to get Kid Gronin's opinion on this. But basically what happened was Trump stood down. He was told there would be 150 deaths for this retaliatory strike for the drone being shot down. The drone was factually shot down. It wasn't a lie. So we were in their airspace. Probably shouldn't have been, blah, blah, blah. He says, don't do it. It's not worth killing anybody. This was an unmanned drone. And then, I don't know if you know this, but then Iran comes back and says, well, touche, thank you for not doing that. And by the way, we could have shot down a 12-man surveillance plane that was in the sky that we contemplated shooting down that we didn't, which would have been serious casualties. And then, it's on. So, Kid Chronic, what do you think about Iran and Trump?
I have so many thoughts on this.
And why does the media want war so bad? Like, he's getting criticized for why he's not going to war.
Well, first of all, I think that as Democrats, we just don't even know what to do with this, because obviously as Democrats, as liberals, as progressives, we don't want war for any reason whatsoever, pretty much. And so to see Trump pull back, we're like, okay, what the hell's going on? How do we support this? What do we do? What side is this guy on? So Trump's just basically irrational behavior, just throws everybody upside down. So now it's like, whose side are we on? Are we Trump supporters? Are we not Trump supporters? In this instance, I guess I support Trump, but I don't support how he got himself into this bad decision in the first place. Remember, I mean, Trump ripped up the Iran deal, so now they're fidgety, they're worried, they're acting out in different ways, and now he's walked himself into the situation. And they did maybe not shoot down a manned plane, but they did shoot down a $180 million drone. I'm sorry, that's a lot of fucking money,
Sure.
$180 million. And so that's basically gone unchecked. And then
Should
Trump
people
goes and he does
die
a
for
press
that?
conference and he says, well, I think it might have been an accident. And he's like making excuses for them. This guy's always making excuses for people
Right.
because he's afraid of confrontation. He's a pacifist. And so, you know what's interesting? He is almost a symptom of just internet culture. He's so strong behind the keyboard, so strong behind the Twitter, as we all are.
Right.
But in real life, confronted with real life and death, he cowers. He didn't like it. And he didn't care about killing 150 people. He knew that ahead of time. He cared about Tucker Carlson saying that and what it would do to his base and the whole thing. But I think that Tucker got it wrong. Tucker and his little khakis bitched out. And if Trump had killed those 150 people, his freaking followers would be like, yeah, we got him. We did it. We hit Iran. This is fucking awesome. Let's run to the polls and vote for this guy. More bombs.
I don't think it's just his base that wants that. I think CNN, there you can watch any of these shows. They've called him out. Every pundit they have on there and CNBC, MSNBC, they've called him out for not striking, kind of like what you said. So we're in very odd times.
And back to the get-go, we shouldn't be here in the first place. Listen, we were lucky enough to get an Iran deal. Not perfect. How is an Iran deal going to be fucking perfect? But we have a deal with these lunatics in the middle of the desert. Leave it the fuck alone, Trump. You know, my Uncle Sal, who passed away, is a great guy. He used to always say, when you walk by a pile of shit, you don't poke it with a stick because then you have to smell it. And
Right.
Trump pokes every pile of shit with a stick, and then he's got to smell it, and he's not happy.
Well, there's an underlying situation here, which is that Trump has a tremendous allegiance to Israel and to Saudi Arabia, as we've learned. He talked very tough about Saudi Arabia. He did not put them on the list of, remember the Muslim country list that you weren't allowed to come into this country from and all that. By the way, Saudi Arabia was not on that list. Surprise. That's where all the terrorists from 9/11 are from. They killed Khashoggi. So we know that Saudi Arabia is very
Trump's
duplicitous.
Saudi Arabia relationship, and I've talked about this with you before many times, is disturbing. And the country has always had a disturbing relationship with
every
Saudi
president.
Arabia.
Yes,
but
it's
he
every
is really tight with them. And Kushner gave MSB, he gave him a list of dissidents, and then Khashoggi was killed. And the big question is, was Khashoggi on that list of dissidents? Because then Jared Kushner would have handed a list of dissidents to MSB that led to an American journalist being murdered. And that's a fascinating piece of information I think is yet to come out.
Well, I think the Saudis knew that guy's story no matter what. They don't need Jared Kushner's help in putting that guy on a list of
That's
any
probably
sort.
true.
They know who that guy was and what he was doing. And, yeah, he had safe haven in America where he could write about these things, anti-Saudi sentiments, whatever, that essentially did him in. Every president is too friendly with Saudi Arabia.
What did we become? I thought the whole deal was that we had to drill oil all over and ruin the Gulf and do all this stuff because we had to be energy independent. And now Trump and everybody's running around saying we're energy independent. But if we're energy independent, why are we still messing around in the Gulf?
This is one of those lies, I believe, that everybody tells about how much oil production we have. We don't need it. So why are we spending so much money with them still? Why are we so at the end of the day, people need to understand this about Saudi Arabia, and here's one of the problems. They used all of that cash that they fucking roll around in, and they have tons of it, and they bought influence in the United States. And the way they did that really was not through government. They are not obviously in our politics, but they are in our businesses and our banks. They have a tremendous amount of cash that are propping up many, many banks, tons into billions and billions of dollars of cash in our banks. And they are majority, they hold, I shouldn't say majority, they are minority owners of tons of companies, tons of Silicon Valley, by the way, seed money for every app you can think of. So they've gotten very smart. They've ingrained themselves into our two biggest kind of situations, our banking and then our business. So, and you can look at this up. They're Twitter.
I think
Saudi
a lot of
princes
people can't wrap their head around how much money that those people make in the Middle East. You know, the Saudis, it's called Saudi Arabia, because that's the Saudi family's name. Like, it's their country, people.
Right.
And they're making billions with a B on probably the daily basis. I'd love to see the stats on that. So the money that they have to invest, they have so much money that they legit never have to worry about money. So they can throw money around in such large numbers that in America, where we have capitalism and the money spread out a little bit more evenly, they can have huge influence. Huge influence. For them to throw $100 million to something like they bailed out Kushner on his building that was upside down for $1 billion, that's nothing for them. Yeah. So if you can save a politician's literally whole financial portfolio, you can have a lot of influence over that person.
They own a lot of people, and that's why they will always be our friend. So you can forget about getting tough with that country about anything.
Hey, attack us on 9/11. Don't worry, we'll hit Iraq.
Yeah, right. And that, by the way, that's your media. That's the mainstream media sold everybody on that. Congratulations.
It was also our government.
Well, absolutely. Well, in cahoots.
And some pretty credible people in our government too. I think Colin Powell was involved in that. I think we all like Colin Powell.
Shame on
I think everybody fell victim there.
Yeah, he was like.
They've kind of say that is that Cheney, like, are we to blame that? Is he's the one that's orchestrated that whole mess? Is that really to lie on his shoulders, or?
Yeah.
Maybe Donald Rumsfeld a little bit, maybe.
Well, it was a group, but Cheney. Bush was a figurehead, and Cheney really ran, especially anything that was military or that was terrorist related. That was Cheney's call, and he, there's a lot of he's an interesting guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the movie does it best.
Yeah,
we'll leave it at that.
So I guess to put a bow on it, right now the good news is, in my opinion, is that we're not having a war with Iran yet. And let's see what happens, but it's a dicey situation. Yeah, he tore up the sanctions. They're getting sanctioned left and right. They're getting fucked. And I don't know what's really supposed to happen or change for this country.
They're going to keep acting out with the new sanctions.
Yeah,
so there's going to be a problem. They're going to shoot something else. They're going to blow up another tanker. And the problem, I think, is that, Trump telegraphed that on the first night. He said something's going to happen. He pointed, and then he flew the jets that first night. And so now so much time has gone by, it's like gotten weird. It's like weird now. So Trump can't really strike or do anything now. It's like settled. So they basically got away with that. They got that free drone knocked down, and that was that. But now if they do something else, now what's Trump going to do? See, so this is getting real weird because now Trump's going to have two backed up. He's just going to let them do whatever. So it's touchy, man.
He would start looking weak.
If Iran is smart, they just chill the fuck out right now because there's no way that Trump's not going to bomb them next time. He's going to be forced to.
I don't know. You're right. There's no end game here. So right now we're just buying time with Iran, pretty much. That's my opinion. So, all right. Now let's get to This is the most interesting topic that we're going to cover probably for the rest of the show here. And it's all Silicon Valley, internet-based. And it's this Hawley bill. And it's Senator Hawley.
Josh Hawley.
Josh Hawley. And I think it's co-sponsored with Senator Mark Warner. And so there's kind of two parts to this. One thing they want to do is somehow assess what is the value of all this data that Facebook and YouTube and Google and all these social media sites that they're collecting about you. How do you assess this value? So that's the big thing. And then I'm going to let you talk because you were very interested in this topic after I pointed it out to you, and you have a strong opinion of how the right, these two guys, by the way, are Republican senators. And what is the goal here with this? We're going to remove a restriction that's going to there's some protection in this bill that social media companies were getting, and this is going to remove that. That's going to make them very susceptible to some problems.
Social media companies actually get a world of protections, and I'm just going to touch on them here. So here's the main problem with the bill. The bill aims to regulate social media. Hell yes, we all want to regulate social media. It's a goddamn shit show out there. It's the Wild West. But this bill doesn't do any of that. This bill addresses what they say is right-wing bias. And the way that the bill works is this. So you'll have to go to the FCC, a board of people that is not even elected, that's put in by the president, so totally partisan. You go in front of the FCC, you show them all of your standards, and if they say your standards meet their requirements, then you can keep the restrictions, which means that basically people can't sue you. So the way that the restrictions work now, or the protections, I should say, the way the protections work now, if you're on Facebook and you post something really crazy and off the wall, Facebook can't be sued because you posted it on their platform. Well, imagine if those protections were removed. And all these people posting all this crazy stuff, everyone that's offended or hurt or has seen something that's jarred their life, whatever, could sue Facebook. So the lawsuits would pour in. And so you could really have a huge effect on a company by removing these protections, which may or may not which could possibly not even be there or should not even be there. The other thing that it does, these companies are protected from copyright. So when they go and they take a New York Times story, when they take a photo and it's shared on their stuff, they don't have to pay for it, and they don't have to oblige by copyright laws. So that's how social media survives. It steals all this content and then it serves it back up on its platform where people can comment and talk about it. And I think that by taking them out of copyright laws is what screwed up the whole news cycle, because the news should originate at the news origination source, at a New York Times, at a Fox News, at wherever it does. They should have all the comments there. By not charging social media and letting them steal that content with not enforcing copyright laws just so that you can get likes and traffic, because that's the way that this industry was born, is the major failure of internet media. It should be that Facebook has to pay the news org so they have the money to go get the news and chase the news so that they can get it onto their platform. And I could get into so much more stuff about Facebook's policies too, because they're just as corrupt.
Well, why does Facebook have to jam news down anybody's throat? This was a social media platform. And Twitter, by the way, they all did this. And I think that this was something they had planned all along. This was always part of a plan, was get in as a social media fun thing, but they wanted to be considered a media entity. And as you know, we have a big gray area on whether this is a utility, a private company. Should they, well, they're private, so they can do what they want. There's tremendous debate.
Really hard to not be a media company. That's what they don't want to be, because they don't want the laws that are associated with being a media company. They don't want to deal with that. So they try to argue actually that they're a utility and that they don't have to deal with this
while
stuff.
They are a media
company. Yeah, it's just people posting what they want to post, they would argue. But the reality is that Facebook actually took the news out of the news feed. So we have a thing that they call a news feed. It has no fucking news in it at all. It has pictures of your family, crazy shit that people post, memes, all this other stuff. But the only way a news agency can get into the news feed is if they boost their post, if they pay. Well, a news organization that's pumping out tons of articles a day can't afford to boost all its posts to get them out there. And so the news actually gets held back, and the dumb shit that your friends post gets amplified. So on your personal page, Facebook has an algorithm called PageRank. When you post something on your personal page, it goes to 20% of your friends. If they like it and comment on it and it gets good interaction, it's released to 40% of your friends. And that's the max it'll go. It's never going out to all of your friends. If you have a fan page or a business page, like a New York Times or a Fox News, it goes to 1% of your fucking followers. So you have all these followers, it only goes to 1% of them unless you boost it. So Facebook has riddled the news out of the news feed, and what's left is just opinion from fucking morons that you may have known from high school, and that is where 60% of the country is getting their news from. So is it any surprise at all that the country is basically retarded?
Well, again, anyone who's using Facebook as a news source should really have their head examined.
They should get hit upside the head with their laptop.
Listen, my daughter used Facebook when she was 11 years old as a news source. That's where she would get stories. Otherwise, she didn't follow news at all. And that's what really they were good for, was that people that didn't give a shit about news would catch some stories on Facebook. But again, they and I know you're talking about... But
now the only news that gets out is the people that pay. And the people that have the most money to pay have the worst fucking agenda. The person that's reporting good, honest news, that's calling out power, has no money to boost anything to any great extent.
Here's the news. Don't get your news from Facebook. There's plenty of sites, and there's plenty of papers, and there's plenty of information. This doesn't have to be your portal to get it. That's what I'm really lost on. I never got my news from Facebook, so it's very strange.
Facebook needs to settle into what it really is, which is just a digital phone book. People need to stop pouring all their stuff in there because they can. They need to stop scrolling through the feed endlessly all day at stuff they don't even want to fucking look at. They need to stop creating videos that nobody's going to fucking watch, and they need to just let it be a directory of humans. Get your news from real news organizations.
Yeah, I mean, again, and you can look at a Facebook shared post, and it's from some .com that nobody's ever heard of. So I don't even know why anyone...
What is their vetting process for allowing .coms on? WordPress.LasVegasNews.breaking. Right-wing crazy?
This is where the fake news thing came about and was used as a terminology that has all these different meanings now. But look, the reason why these guys are doing this and where we disagree is I do feel that a lot of conservatives... Silicon Valley does not like conservatives, and they don't like their viewpoint in terms of how they feel, whether it's about abortion, whether it's about, the Middle East, whatever it is, there's Silicon Valley has made it pretty obvious that they have a certain way of thinking, and it goes with much of the Democrat Party and the media. It all goes kind of in line with what the norm in America for a lot of people seems to be. And I think that some of these people have been unfairly targeted in that I don't know anyone on the left that has really, of any social media status, who's lost it. Farrakhan, they threw Farrakhan when they got rid of Alex Jones. We got rid of Farrakhan too, and that's like, oh my God, are you kidding me? He doesn't even identify on the left anyways, whatever, and he's a polarizing figure that probably shouldn't have been on there. But you don't think that anything's going to even happen with this, that this is just going to die, and that this
bill's going nowhere. It's going nowhere. It's going to get destroyed in the process. But here's the thing. So it's become a Republican talking point. Oh, we're being targeted. We're being pushed off these platforms. And I kind of understand it. The platforms had to respond to what was basically a huge media and just human push for them to clean up their shit because everything had gotten so crazy in there, and you thought an election might have been stolen and all that. Right. So there was a huge push to clean it up, and they were trying to do that. But here's the reality. On these social media platforms, a lot of the Democrats are pushing things that are more PC. A lot of the Democrats have degrees. A lot of the Democrats are people that don't comment on social media. They just live their life and they silently sit there. It's a different crowd, right? And the right-wing crowd is a lot more extreme currently. And they have a lot more extreme views, and they make a lot more extreme memes. And so it's a very volatile thing that's going on there, and it's good, and it works for them. But that's because it's just the sheer hostility there, and just the bold lies like about Sandy Hook, and just really harsh things. That's what's gotten some of them into the trouble that they're into. And I don't really feel bad for some of those people that were banned. And here's the thing. Guess what, guys? There is no social media bias. They go through and they have a set of rules, and if the people break them, they're banned. I've been banned multiple times. Tons of people have been banned. It happens every day. And that's just the reality of it. To think that the social media companies care right-wing or left-wing is just total nonsense, because I'll tell you what. A right-wing asshole is the fucking president, and he social media'd his way the whole way to the fucking White House. So how the fuck can there be bias when you have the most powerful position in the world? You're a biggest social media superstar.
Yeah, well, that's why what he did was so remarkable, because to do that against all those odds and a deep state and a John Brennan.
No, see, you're not giving him credit. Trump has a better social media presence than an InfoWars. InfoWars took it too far. Sure. He got slapped on the hand. You have a right to free speech. You don't have a right to a free Facebook to fund your whole company. His whole presence was based on their social media. They pissed him off. They crossed the line. They got wiped. Trump is smart. He rarely crosses a line. I don't even think he has tweets that are really deleted. He is pretty solid about keeping an aggressive but acceptable tone on social media.
There are celebrities that have asked Jack Dorsey to ban Donald Trump for the things he said on there. I mean, like, if people had their way, if Bette Midler had her way, Trump would lose. He would be kicked off of that. Can you imagine that they would kick
that?
The
would be
president
fucking ridiculous, because
come on,
if all the things that Trump does that I hate him for, which there's a myriad of them, tweeting is not the worst thing that he does.
No.
If anything, it gives us insight into his crazy-ass mind, which I need.
Well, absolutely. And what it also shows you is that even the president of the United States, the egoist and the megalomaniac that he is addicted to social media, at least this particular form. There's no doubt he's addicted. There's no doubt that he likes to use it as his platform.
He's addicted to the loop. The TV, I tweet, I get on the TV, people comment on it. He is addicted to being the leader of that loop, which I'm sure is pretty entertaining. I mean, you just touch your cell phone and it goes out to the whole world. I mean, that's everyone's dream, right? That's got to be pretty cool and pretty powerful. But I think at the end of the day, we'll never have another president that is not a social media pro. You can't win without being a social media pro anymore. Trump changed the game. Everybody was trying to be gentle on social media and be like a news political guy. Trump said, fuck that. I'm taking it right to the people. And you can't do it anymore without doing it. He changed the whole game.
You know, it's funny that you're saying that, and he did. And before Trump, Obama had a very good social media situation too. So we saw this bubbling as social media and internet became more and more important.
Trump saw Obama's presence. He said, let me Republicanize that.
Yeah. Well,
and now
it's smart.
It's good.
It worked. But here's the question I'm going to pose to you, because I never thought about this. But have you noticed that this group of Democrats, I don't know who is the social media leader. They're certainly trying with the stupid videos that we've talked about before, but is anybody really going to capture that, like, of this group? I don't really see.
We don't have anybody on Trump's social media level. Maybe a Bernie.
Yeah. I mean,
that would be the only one.
Andrew Yang is
Because, you've got other top people like a Pete Buttigieg. Yeah, he's a cool social media guy, but he doesn't have the force that a Trump has on social media, So,
no.
But Trump is also a sitting president, so it's hard to compare him to anybody else.
Yeah, he did. Listen, one thing for sure is that social media, and you could say the Russian bots and all this other shit that involved whatever, it had a key part of getting him elected, as well as certain allies like the Sean Hannity. Listen, he ran a good campaign. I mean, at the end of the day.
Oh, Trump is a great campaigner.
Yeah,
Say what you want. The man hustles. He's out there working. Look, compared to Joe Biden, and I would vote for Joe Biden over him, he does seem a little more vibrant. I don't know if Putin is sending him the young guy cocktail. I'm not sure what's happening there, but Trump is pretty
Tiger's
vibrant. He gets on the plane. He gets his ass out there. He gives a speech. He does one after another, and he looks like he's hustling and working for the people. And he's a good presenter. He presents himself well, and he works hard when the cameras are on, and it's smart. I mean, he spent $100 million on golf, and nobody's even talking about it, because when he's in front of the camera, he's working.
Yeah.
Here's a couple things on this bill I got to get off my chest, okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
One, Republicans repealed the Fairness Doctrine. The Fairness Doctrine required that on news you had both sides shown for important issues. So now you pull back the Fairness Doctrine because you got to have your Fox News that doesn't have both sides of the issue, right? But then on the internet, I need that fucking fairness back, man. I'm losing the war on the internet. I need the fairness back. So that's bullshit right there. And then number two, here's why the Hawley bill's most definitely not going to work. It's censorship. Facebook has a right to free speech. They can put out whatever speech they want. So you're getting into a grand free speech thing. So when you say that Facebook is forced to put out this other sort of speech or forced to let people on the network, it's just never going to happen. You see what I'm saying? Because you're infringing on Facebook's right to have its own speech out there. So when you get into that whole free speech question, everyone just runs for the hills.
It just seems like Silicon Valley picked a side. They went liberal. That's what they identify as. And now they have the power to fuck with people on the other side. And if that means putting the brakes on you, if it means shutting you down for 2 weeks, if it means Steven Crowder, the guy from Vox, we can talk about Carlos Maza, he literally cried his way into saying that this Steven Crowder belittles me. He's calling me names. Essentially, he is. He's calling him names, but this shouldn't be something that takes you down off of a platform. We've gotten very scary in terms of now what upsets people. Number one, the threshold of I mean, come on now. And then number two, that you just being upset actually could instigate some actual results from just you crying about it.
That's not really it. See, that's your point. Here's the deal. As a tech company owner, let me tell you, the tech companies don't have any interest in social justice or social awareness or any of that. The tech companies like Facebook and Twitter, they're so big, they're interested in being their own countries. So they just want to get rid of people that are causing too much drama, to keep them out of the news, to keep them unregulated, so they can keep making more and more money, get more and more data, figure out more ways to make money off that data. Do you think Facebook is coming out with its own currency for a reason? Of course it is, because they look at themselves like their own country. They don't care about U.S. politics or any of the other countries they're in politics. They have 2.83 billion users. That makes them bigger than any country in the world. And that's how they see themselves. So they just cut off people that are too noisy on their network to cause them drama while they take over the world.
We will talk more about this subject because Hawley bill isn't the only thing going on here. There's antitrust lawsuits going on. You have Nicholas Sandman, who is the "Don't Tread on Me" or the Indian, the kid with the
he's got a lawsuit for what, like $200-300 million.
Yeah, so
That's
he's
crazy.
going after some social media and media, whatever. So we're seeing some things happen. And then what is it? James Damore, who worked for Google and put out that paper. So there's a lot of landmark, one-of-a-kind decisions coming down the pipe.
Is due to be regulated. The problem is Congress is too stupid to regulate them. When they have these hearings and you hear the questions that Congress asks, they don't even bring in professionals. They just say some of the dumbest stuff. I've never heard them address the fact that there's no news in the Facebook news feed. I've never heard them address the fact that people have to boost things to get out. There's no organic way to go viral anymore, so that Facebook is actually like basically impeding and putting dams into the flow of news and affecting how news gets out to people. I've never heard them hit any of the deep subjects. I've never heard them talk about putting names under ads of where they're bought from, or why sites that have zero credibility ranking are allowed on these platforms. And none of the real issues are ever touched on. And so until we get Congress people that can understand the technology, we can't regulate it.
Yeah, that's also a problem. These people are very out of touch. If you watched any of the hearings when Mark Zuckerberg or anybody of importance got up and spoke with these people, they looked like they were lost out there. They didn't know what the right questions to ask, and whenever answers were given, they certainly didn't have any sort of follow-up or rebuttal because they didn't understand anything they were being told.
It's like Mark Zuckerberg. Do you love America? Do you hate Republicans? Okay, have a nice day.
Right. It didn't accomplish much of anything.
Embarrassing.
So, well, folks, this is episode number 2. Jesse, how are we looking on time here? We have 5 minutes.
Here's what I would like to talk about.
Yeah.
Because this is something you sent me this week that is great. Facebook moderators, what they have to go through. The Verge article, it basically says that there's 15,000 Facebook moderators out there, and they sit in front of a computer. These videos pop up, which are like the most appalling videos you've ever seen in the world, and they have to decide on a split second whether or not that should be on Facebook or not.
Right.
And these people have, like, obviously what is an awful job, and they're not paid that well, and there's obviously not enough of them. And it's just a fascinating article. So what do you think about that?
So what Kid Chronic's referring to is there's a company called Cognizant, and I guess they're outsourced. Facebook outsources this company that has just regular folks. I mean, this is also what's strange about it is there's no real skills required to do this or anything like this. So what people do, and like he said, I mean, 15,000 people, I think, between a couple of locations, they look at all these Facebook posts, Facebook Lives, and have to make decisions, like he said, pretty quickly on, is this going to get trashed? What do we got to do with this? Whatever. Apparently, it's tremendous amounts of violence, whether it's violence with animals, violence with people, murders, terrorist stuff. It's just it's like this barrage of, it's like watching Saw or Hostel over and over and over and over again. I think it would scar your brain. There's something totally bad about that if this is your job. It's like, I always wonder why people became fucking corrections officers. Like, why would you ever do that? It seems so bizarre to me. Yeah, like, that's your job. So I think people that do this too, it's very interesting. So there's been many articles written about it. There's some whistleblowers now coming out as well. So Facebook's now got to defend themselves on this. Deplorable working conditions. They make these people sit there. It's kind of like like slave driven in a way, not allowed to get up for the bathroom and all this. And it's just, you just got to sit there and like a bot would do, but you're a human bot, so to speak, and you have to go through all of this terrible, terrible material and disseminate it. And
what I thought was really fascinating, too, is the Facebook lie. Because I talked about it, and I believe the Facebook lie, that most of their moderation is done by bots. And I think the first wave is done, somebody complains, and then you can choose whether or not to appeal it, and then it goes to these moderators. But it really is it's a human system. Facebook does not have this super high-tech system that is going through this content. There are people sitting there judging the worst content in the world, and they said that Facebook would be like this awful place if all this content got through. And so we really have to analyze that. Like, if it wasn't for this wall, like the ice wall in Game of Thrones of 15,000 people keeping all this content off of Facebook, it would literally be filled with murders and terrorist attacks, stabbings, people torturing animals, slow deaths they said that they saw on there.
Suicides.
It was really, really disturbing.
Well, first of all, it also tells you that humanity is fucked. I mean, like, why is there this much violence? Why is there so much of this that these people even have to look at? That 15,000 people. Think about that.
They're not even violent. They want to broadcast it. They need to show it off.
Yeah, and which, by the way, it's I think leads to more of it, because if you want to, you have a platform for it, so you're more likely to do it now. And I think Facebook Live is
the Verge
it's an interesting concept.
Article was written by, I don't know, some guy who must be like, a 40-year-old virgin, because he's like, people are having sex in the hallways and people smoke bowls in the parking lot. And he was like so disturbed by it. And I'm like, what the fuck does this guy think goes on at every other company in America?
Right.
Like, that's just another day at the office in this country, buddy.
He thought that was just a Burning Man.
One of the really fascinating pieces of it, too, was they interview the employees that worked at this place where they get paid fucking nothing. They get treated like shit and they do a god-awful job. And what is their number one goddamn request? They just wish other Facebook employees would look at them as peers, because that's how big and cool Facebook is in their marketing and whatever. They just want to be a part of the real Facebook. So they will sit there and do all the horrible work that the real Facebookers don't do. Well, the coders are up there on yoga mats freaking working 2 hours a day at like getting free lunch.
Yeah, they're being hand-fed Kobe beef.
Yeah, exactly. Getting palm frond.
There's actually a huge disparity in pay as well. These people get paid shit to do this. So you get to ruin your mind and your brain. You get to see
But then they come to Facebook and they want to break Facebook up. So if Facebook is going to outsource something, why not outsource the worst fucking job in the world?
Yeah, just imagine that this is a job. That the people that they have to sit and moderate all this terrible stuff. And Well,
if you go to war and you're involved in a shooting situation or a few shooting situations and some people die, quite often you can have PTSD. I don't know enough about, watching videos, but if you watch murder videos for 2, 3, 4, 5 years straight, 40 hours a week, I mean,
Right.
it's got to make you at least kind of bummed out. I mean, depressed, sad.
It's
Make it change your view of humanity at the least.
well, yeah, and it's the same way when people go off to war. They go and fight in battle, whatever. The reason why they're coming back with PTSD is because of all the death that they're seeing. It's not because they went to Iraq. That's not the problem. It's not the country that they went to. It's all the carnage and the death that they experienced, and that's hard to get out of your head. So for that to be,
It reminds me of, have you ever seen the movie Clockwork Orange? It's like a Stanley Kubrick movie.
Of course.
And they hold his eyes open and force him to watch all this horrible stuff until he
Right.
can't do horrible things anymore. That's almost like with the job of being a Facebook moderator.
yeah, that's like Nazi Germany, crazy, what do you call it? I'm drawing blanks today for some reason. Crazy experiment shit. But yeah, I feel bad for people that work at this place. Go find another job, please. Go drive for Uber or something.
It sucks too because they sign confidentiality agreements. So it's not like afterwards you can be like, oh, I was a Facebook moderator, and you even get that credibility. You don't even get that. If anything, this should be an on-shoot into working for the main Facebook company. But Facebook probably looks at it like, damn, we don't want to take those broken people. They know all the worst shit about us. Get rid of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We got to stay up here in our hunky-dory PC, billion-dollar Facebook office.
It's all going to come home to roost for social media, folks.
I don't think that social media is going to be this big part of our future. I think it's peaking right now with Trump. I really do. And I think that we grew up, we had a phone that was tethered to the goddamn wall. Okay?
Right.
Now we have a whole movie studio in our pocket that's attached to all the technology in the world. And we're just starting to use this technology. We're just getting used to it now. So in the future, do you think our kids are going to be pouring everything onto Facebook, running around taking videos of everything, sitting at a concert, not even watching the concert, just
Right.
videoing it to make a video that nobody else is going to fucking watch on Facebook? No, all that dumb shit's going to go away, and people will settle into a normal relationship with technology, hopefully.
Yeah, I agree.
And then AI will kill them, but that's another story.
Yeah, this will get old at some point. Yeah. Well, let's hope it does, because this is all going in a kind of a negative direction. So, folks, you are listening to episode number 2. This is Ruthless Politics with Kid Chronic
And Treez.
And Treez. And we appreciate you listening. Folks, we got social media that you can, Mr. Josh W., you can find me on Instagram and Twitter.
You can find me at PJZNY across social media.
We appreciate that you listen to the second podcast. We will have a third and a fourth and a fifth. There's no end in sight for us. Politics is ruthless out there. So,
And it's not getting any better. We'll see you every Tuesday, folks.
all right.